I'm a massive Game of Thrones fan, and I've kept that really quiet as a priest because Game of Thrones has some quite objectionable parts to it. There's a lot of violence and there's quite a lot of sex, especially in the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, and that kind of put me off at the beginning. But a friend of mine sort of encouraged me to persevere with it, and I did, and I was totally hooked, totally hooked. And I think once you get beyond that, if you can get beyond that, for me it's probably one of the best written TV dramas it's ever been. It's so well written. I just, was totally hooked and obsessed with it, I have to say, for quite a few seasons. I think as the seasons go on, it seems to have got, well, probably as violent, but there's been a lot less sex in it, I suppose, which for me has been quite helpful, and maybe justifies me a bit more how as a priest I can just enjoy Game of Thrones as much as I do. But I got my favourite characters, and my favourite characters are the misfits in Game of Thrones. I'm not really that keen on the Lannisters, hate the Lannisters to be honest. I'm not that taken with all the Starks, it's all a bit boring up there, winter's coming and all that stuff. And Jon's just, so torn, isn't he? He's just never really, I don't know, he's always convincing himself that he's okay. But my favourite characters are Tyrion, of course, who I hated at the beginning, which I don't know if others did. That's my own moral code that got me to hate him. I love him to bits, but now in season 8, he's just become almost like the opposite of himself. He's apologising for being himself, which isn't very Tyrion-esque. So I don't quite know what's happened with the script writing this season, but he's kind of had a bit of a character morph. So I kind of like him sort of in between season 1 and in between season 8. I kind of really loved him, but he's kind of just lost the plot this season. Arya, love Arya to bits. She's just been, for me, one of those characters that's kept me interested because of her, I don't know, maybe she sort of speaks to something in me, her kind of bit of a loner, quite cold-hearted, not saying I'm cold-hearted, but I kind of something about her that appeals to me. So I really liked her. And I think someone who really I've identified with in a way is Sam, because Sam was trained to be a Maester, which I suppose is Game of Thrones' version of kind of being a priest maybe. He's led a celibate life, he led a life of study, he would understand the divine kind of arts, so to speak. And I'm very interested in the way that his characters developed, how he broke his celibacy, which I suppose in today's age is quite a common thing to be portrayed in the media, I feel. And I thought it was a very interesting take on Sam's character. But nonetheless, I just really like Sam and his kind of humanity. So it's the misfits that I really like in Game of Thrones, but you need the main kind of set to get the misfits to work. So in terms of the whole narrative of Game of Thrones, just love it. And I'm really grateful to the directors, the producers and the actors for all they've given us over the last 10 years, over the last 8 seasons. I think it's just been utterly phenomenal. So thank you guys. And if you want to do any more spin-offs, please do them, because I'll be watching and I'm sure there'll be millions of other people watching as well.